So believe it or not, I think one of the most important decades in your life is your 20s. I think if you can really take control of your future, you can set yourself up well by educating yourself, investing, and just overall developing yourself. And a lot of people want to do this. It's not something they don't want to do, but a lot of people don't know how to get started. It's easy for me to say I read this book and that book and invested into this stock and I made a lot of money. But for someone that doesn't really understand it, and like I just said, doesn't know where to start, it can be very overwhelming and
you might just want to pull your hair out.
Anyway, as I was kind of hinting out before, I really think your 20s is a time to put your head down, work as hard as you can, chase your passion, educate yourself, and just set yourself up for the future. And in saying that, I want to give some goals that I think, some financial goals that I think would be great to accomplish by the time you turn 30. And if you're watching this, and if you're 30 or if you're older than 30 and you haven't accomplished these, it doesn't mean that you can't accomplish these. Maybe that means you can set out to accomplish these in the next 5 years or 10 years, and that's gonna work just as well for you. The first goal I'm gonna talk about is getting out of bad debt. And by bad debt, I mean debt that's not going to make you money in the long run, and that's really debt, I would say, over 5%. And the first type of debt that comes to mind personally, although there are other ones we could talk about, is credit card debt. And there's nothing wrong with having bad debt. I mean, it's not good to have, but if you do have it, it's not something you should feel bad about. A lot of people in their early 20s or even early 30s rack up a lot of bad debt, and a lot of times with good reason. But it's important to realize that it's bad debt and to make the commitment of paying it down as soon as possible and getting out of it, especially credit card debt. The average credit card debt per household is about $5,700, and the average interest on credit card is between 15 and 20%. That's a lot of money and a lot of interest, and it's going to continue to rack up. And it's going to continue to suck up your money if you don't commit to paying it down. Personally, I don't see any reason why I wouldn't pay for everything with a credit card, because say you buy everything in cash and you buy everything with a credit card. By buying everything with a credit card, you might save 2% or whatever the cash back is with that card just by using the card. And people might say, well, it's only 2%, doesn't matter. And well, I guess yes and no. It doesn't matter if you look at it from one single purchase, but it will add up over time. And second of all, it's not like I'm doing anything extra. Say I pay with a credit card or a debit card, I'm still using a card, except I'm saving 2% with one and I'm not saving anything with the other. It'd be one thing if I had to do all this research and all this elaborate planning, all this and that in order to save the 2%, and then maybe it's not worth it, then it wouldn't be worth my time. But essentially, I'm just swiping a card, and instead of paying 100% on something, I might only be paying 98%. I basically use my credit card as a bridge between that and my checking account, and I don't buy something if I don't have the money for it. It's just that simple. Now, as I just said, I don't really see any reason to not use a credit card for everything, except if you really cannot control your spending. So maybe if you need to get food for the week, you need to get gas, stuff like that, necessities that you already have the money for, okay, great. But if you're buying a $10,000 ping pong table, which you don't have the money for, maybe you shouldn't be using a credit card per se. Maybe you should try some sort of strategy like just using it for one necessity. For example, getting a credit card and using it for gas. Just using it to put gas in your car twice a week as opposed to paying off your $500 bar tab on a Friday night because you'll just take care of it later. As great as I think credit cards are for cash back, traveling, and building a good credit score, they can also be a black hole when it comes down to it. And the further you go into that black hole, the harder it can be to get out of. The next financial goal I would say to try and achieve by the age of 50 is getting a good credit score, ideally above 750. By getting a good credit score, you're going to be able to get approved for credit cards easily when you apply for a new one. And it's also going to be easier to get approved for auto loans, mortgages, and you're going to get better interest rates on both of those. In order to get approved for an FHA loan, you're going to need a credit score of above 580. This could also affect you down the road if you don't have a good credit score, because say you have kids and you want to co-sign on their student loan, or maybe you want to co-sign on their auto loan, and you don't have a good credit score, it's just going to lead to a higher interest rate. You can build a good credit score easily by having multiple lines of credit, paying off in full at the end of every month, optimizing your credit utilization rate, and not closing credit cards ever, really, unless it's really worth it with the annual fee. Now, again, if you have trouble with credit cards and not spending more than you have, go back to the necessity example. Maybe just use your credit card to put gas in your car, or maybe just pay for your gym membership or something small and then don't use it otherwise. Even if it's just putting a candy bar on it and paying off the candy bar every month, something small just to keep building your credit. The third thing I want to talk about is expanding or growing your human capital. And if you don't know what human capital is, it's basically expanding your habits and knowledge into more and more fields. In other words, just developing yourself. With your 20s being a time where you don't have as many responsibilities, I think this is a good time to really try to expand your human capital. You can do this by reading books, reading articles, exploring industries that you aren't really knowledgeable about, and really just going outside your comfort zone. I really think that human capital is an invaluable asset. I don't think there's really anything that compares to it. And I think it's going to lead to more income in a lot of different ways than you can even imagine. The fourth financial goal you should aim to achieve before the age of 30 is to start a second source of income. This can be done by starting a side hustle or a business, investing in dividend stocks, investing in real estate, just to name a few. And this is important for a few different reasons. The first reason this is really important is because you truly never know what the future holds. Companies downsize out of nowhere. It's not expected for layoffs to occur. You really don't know what's going to happen, and your job future in that position you're in now is really to be determined. Obviously, there's some jobs that are safe. There are a lot of jobs that are safe, but you really never know. That's the bottom line. I'm sure someone's out there watching this video who has lost their job or had their job altered due to this virus. So this is a once in 100-year event that you can't predict. So there's just a prime example of how you really don't know. If you do lose your job and you don't have a second source of income, at first you might be all right between unemployment and your emergency fund if you have one. If you don't have one, that's a different story. But then as time goes on, once unemployment starts to run out and your savings starts to deplete, you're not going to become as valuable, and you might not be able to get the full value of what you're worth out of an employer. You might have to take the first job that comes up or the first thing that you can find because you simply need the income and the money to pay the bills. However, if you do have a second source of income, you might be able to hold off on the job, focus on the second source of income, and just live off of that for a little while until you find a job that you think is worth your time. Think of it this way, and I mentioned this before on the channel. When you're investing in individual stocks, you should not put all your eggs in one basket. So you shouldn't put all your money in Apple or Google or Facebook, even though those are successful companies, because you truly never know what's going to happen. And even though they seem successful, you don't know what the future holds for them. And if you're not diversified like that, it could lead to bad things down the line. Well, it's the same thing with your job. If your job's your only source of income and you put all your eggs into that and you bet your mortgage, your auto loan, your student loan, everything on that job, and then that job goes away, it's going to be really difficult for you to recover if you don't have anything else going for you. And if you do start a side hustle or a second source of income, then it's possible that that could eventually eclipse the income from your normal job. And that's going to even give you more freedom, because then if you don't like what happens at your job, you can leave for a little while, or you can start looking for something else, and you'll still be okay because you'll have that source of income. And additionally, this is obviously, if you have multiple income streams, it's going to lead to more income. So it could lead to investing further and retiring earlier. The fifth and final financial goal we're going to talk about to aim to achieve before the age of 30 is to start saving for retirement and to aim to save between 25 and 30% of your income. Now, for some of you watching this, you may be in shock and you might be saying 25 to 30%. I can't even say 5% right now. And that's okay, because everyone's situation is different. Everyone has different expenses, yada, yada, yada. But it's not about where you start, it's where you finish. If all you can afford is the 5%, then just start saving and investing that 5% into retirement, and then start thinking of ways to increase your income in order to work towards that 25 to 30% threshold. Now, for some of you watching this, you might be laughing at me because you might just be like,
You just said to increase your income, it's not that easy, blah, blah, blah.
yes, I know. Increasing your income is much easier said than done, but there are a few ways to do this that everyone can do. One thing you can do to increase your income at your job, which is very simple, is just ask for a raise. And you can use this method, which is actually in I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Very good book, would really, really, really recommend to everyone. We'll link that down below in the description as always. But anyway, what you do is you schedule a meeting with your boss and you say, what does it take to be a top performer in this field? And you ask for different criteria, different goals, etc. Your boss is going to give you a list of goals. They're going to say, I want sales at 20%, I want 2 new employees brought in, and I want this. Whatever he gives you, he's going to give you, and he's going to want you to meet those goals. So you're going to say, okay, if I can meet those goals within however long it is, if he gives you a time frame, say 3 to 6 months, I'd like to talk about a compensation adjustment. So what you do is you go back to your desk and you start working towards those goals every day until you meet them. And then 3 to 6 months down the line, you email your boss, hey, I just want a quick meeting again if you have the time. So he comes back, he schedules the meeting, and you say, hey, so you wanted 20% in sales, I'm at 25. You wanted 2 employees hired, I've got 4. You wanted this, I did this. And you say, you said this is what it takes to be a top performer in this field. I've proven over the last 3 months, I've been a top performer in this field. I would like to talk about a compensation adjustment. And based off of the research in the book, which it seems pretty legitimate, most times, if your boss really values you based off of that work you've done and he sees merit in it, then he's gonna give you a raise. I know it seems a little too good to be true, but I don't really think it's a method too many people take. How many people have you ever heard that have gone to their boss and say, what does it take to be a top performer in this field? So I think it really works, and I would really recommend trying it. A second way you can increase your income is simply by getting a new job. And when you get a new job and you get that job offer, never take the first job offer that comes to you, unless it's a union or a fixed salary or something along those lines where you really cannot negotiate at all. But if it's just a standard job offer for a standard company, you should never take the first offer. Mainly because this is a good chance to negotiate 5% on your salary or give yourself a 5% raise without doing anything at all. And you're only gonna get this chance really once at every job, and that's at the very beginning. And the third way to increase your income is just, as we talked about before, starting some sort of side hustle or a business. And even if you manage to do all of these things with some of these things, so you negotiate a raise and then you decide that's not enough, you get a new job and you negotiate another raise, and then you start a side hustle and you still say, I really just can't save and invest 25 to 30% of my income, that's okay, because it's not supposed to be easy, because you really need to be disciplined in this field. It's like dieting. It's not always easy to eat healthy when you have friends saying, let's go out to dinner, or you have family members saying, I made this for dinner. It's not that easy, but I do have a couple of ways how you can go about this. The first thing you're gonna wanna do is track your expenses and just see where your money is going. Because once you do this, you're gonna be able to say, this is where I need my money for necessities, and this I can cut back on because it's just simply a want. The second thing you should do is set up some form of auto pay or auto save, and basically just treat it like a tax. So say you get paid every Friday at 7 a.m., by 7:01 that money is gone out of your account. And by doing this, it's not gonna be money you missed because you've never seen it, so you don't even know you have it. Just look at it kind of like a bill, but it's like a bill you're paying yourself, and you're paying yourself first. Or you can look at it, say, as a person who really wants to start going to the gym and start working out. At first, that person might struggle with staying committed and going to the gym, but eventually once they start to see that progress, and they see how their body's changing and they see how they've been moving, then they're gonna become addicted and they just wanna continue to go more and more and more and more and just work towards that progress. Well, it's the same thing with saving and investing. At first, you might struggle because you're like, oh, I wish I had money for this or that. But once you see your money continue to grow and grow and grow and start making you more and more and more money, it's basically gonna become like a game, and it's gonna become, I guess, fun to you, you could say. You're gonna wanna continue funneling more and more money in so your money can grow more and more and more, and you can make more and more and more. In saying that, that's gonna be it for this video, guys. I really hope the stuff I talked about is gonna help set you up well for when you get to your 30s, or if you're already over 30, I hope it sets you up well for the future. I'll see you guys in the next one.